Good evening, grade 8, and welcome to your final review of section in the chapter, or a chapter on fractions, decimals, and percents. This is our review that I gave you today, so we're going to go over the answers to this. If you struggle at all with any of these questions, try and copy down as best you can how you're supposed to do it. If you know an answer, just fast forward through this video and go to a question you don't know. It's the easiest way rather than watch the whole thing. So we're going to start with number 1. It says, what percent is this approximately? So the first thing you have to be able to do is interpret the picture, and that picture is showing 1/6, and it's asking what percent is that. Now there's two ways you can do it, as there's more than two ways, but the first thing is you can simply think of it as being 1 divided by 6, and take your calculator and go, what is 1 divided by 6? And the answer is 0.16666 to infinity. What I really want to do is think about that as a percentage, which means I need the hundredths. So right there, that's our hundredths, right? So that's going to be 16 hundredths, or 16.6 hundredths is what that decimal represents, which is approximately, or which is 16.6 repeating percent is equal to 16.6%. Now that's one way to do it. The other way to do it is much more enjoyable, and it deals with our proportional reasoning. If I set it up as a proportion, 1/6 is equivalent to how many hundredths? Because I set it up this way, I can actually create an algebraic equation like we always have been doing. 6 times x is 6x. 1 times 100 is 100. So the algebraic equation I can create from this proportion would be 6x equals 100. Divide both sides by 6. And I get 16.6 repeating percent. Okay, x equals 16.6. Actually, not percent, sorry. 0.6. If I go back into here and substitute it, so x is 16.6, we can now see that 16.6 out of 100 is approximately 16.6 repeating percent. Okay? So the answer for A is this picture is representing approximately 16 2/3%, or 6.6 repeating. Question 2 is you're given fractions, decimals, or percents, and you're supposed to give the other two. So the first one is, what is 1 2/5 as a decimal? Well, if I'm going to change any fraction to a decimal, I have to be able to read it with a base 10 denominator. So in this case, 1 2/5 is equal to 1 4/10. I now have a 10 in the denominator, base 10 number in the denominator, and what that means is I can read it as 1 4/10. Okay, so 1 2/5 is equal to 1 4/10, and 1 4/10 is 1 4/10. So 1 2/5 as a fraction is equal to 1.4 as a decimal. And as a percentage, I'm going to start here. And we know that percentages, the ultimate goal is to get it to here. So I know I need to deal with fractions. So 1 4/10 is equal to, this is a mixed fraction, is equal to 14/10 as an improper fraction. And what I'm going to do is simply multiply the top and bottom by 10 to create an equivalent fraction of 140 out of 100. That's an equivalent fraction to 14/10. And this will therefore, because it's out of 100, it's going to be 140%. So as a percentage, we have 140%. So 140% as a decimal is 1.2, and as a fraction is 1 2/5, or 1 4/10. Now the next part, it gives you the decimal 0.004, which we have to be able to interpret as being 4 thousandths, right? We have to know our place value. And if we read that as being 4 thousandths as a fraction, it's going to be very easy, right? It's going to be 4 out of 1,000, 4 thousandths. And as a percentage, if it's 4 thousandths, remember, our goal is to get, for percentages, to a fraction out of 100. We can divide by 10. And 4 divided by 10, when you divide by 10, we learned that you take the decimal. In this case, it's at the end of the 4. Move it one place over, and you get this. And 0.4 out of 100 is 0.4%. A little bit less than half, right? So if you get 4 out of 1,000 on a test, not only did you do terrible, you didn't even get 0.5% right on the test. Okay. Next part, E, 12.5%. 12.5% is as a fraction. We can go right away and put 12.5 out of 100. 12.5 out of 100 is equal to 125 over 1,000. How did we get that? We multiply by 10. And 125 thousandths is tenths, hundredths, thousandths, 125 thousandths. So 12.5% as a fraction is 125 over 1,000. And as a decimal, it's 125 thousandths. Okay. Question number 3. It says percentages of numbers. So we're going to do 80 and 3/4% of $80. So what is 80 and 3/4% of $80? The first thing you need to do is think about percentages again. Because I have a percent here, I want to start with this. Okay? And I can put 80 and 3/4% out of 100. Now, obviously, this is confusing because we've never really encountered a fraction in a fraction before. So we probably want to do our best to get rid of it. So instead of doing 80 and 3/4, I'm going to do 80 and 3/4%. These are the same thing. I'm going to start with that. 80.75 out of 100 is equivalent to 8,075. I'm going to multiply by 100, get rid of that decimal. Multiply by 100 out of 10,000. Now, if I read that fraction, it's 8,075 10,000ths. Put my places here. This is the tenths, this is the hundredths, this is the thousandths, this is the 10,000ths, which means my number has to end there. So that is 80 and 3/4% as a decimal. So I'm going to put that up here. Now, instead of putting this, I can put a line through it. 0.8075 of, we can always interpret as being multiplication, $80. Take my calculator, bring it down here. So decimal 8075, or 80 and 3/4% of $80 is $64.60. Now look, it doesn't have the extra zero. Put the insignificant zero there if we're dealing with money. If we're not dealing with money, leave it alone. But it's $64.60, which is 80 and 3/4% of $80. The next one, again, we're dealing with percentages. So the first thing I'm going to do is put this out of 100, make it equivalent by multiplying by 100. So I have to move the decimal 2 places to get rid of it. It's now 1 over 10,000, which is tenths, hundredths, thousandths, 1/10,000th of 2,080, $2,080. Take my calculator. So decimal 0001, excuse me, times $2,080 equals equals 0.208, right? Which is not a lot of money. It's approximately 21 cents, right? Because we're going to box that up. That's 20 cents, but that 8 makes this closer to 21 cents than it does to 20. So we're going to say it's approximately equal to 21 cents. And the last question, 180%. Because it's a percentage, I'm going to put it over 100, which is 180%, which is equal to 1 and 80 hundredths, which we can keep like that. 1 and 80 hundredths is 1 and 80 hundredths. We have an insignificance there, but who cares? 180% of $600. Take my calculator. 180% of 600 equals $1,080. Okay, $1,080. So if you got 180% return on your $600 investment, you now have $1,080. All right, your story problems. It says, Will borrowed $80 from his daughter Maddie at a monthly interest rate of 5.5%. So interest, for those of you who don't know, is a percentage that you have to pay or that you receive for keeping money in a certain place. In this case, I have to give Maddie 5.5% of whatever I borrowed every month as an interest payment. So as she gets to profit from my loan, 5.5% of whatever she gave me. So I'm going to call this month 1, month 2, and month 3, the 3 months that I've lent from Maddie. So the first month, I owe Maddie 5.5% of $80 for interest. So not only do I owe her the $80, but I owe her 5.5% extra. So 5.5%, just to show you the train of thought, is 5.5 out of 100. That's 5.5%, or 55 over 1,000, or 0.055. That's 5.5% as a decimal of $80. Take my calculator, bring it over here. So for month one, I'll go up here, decimal 0.55, 5.5% of $80. Because Maddie lent me the money, I owe her $4.40 interest the first month. Okay, so now I owe her, at the end of month one, I would owe her $84.80. The $80 back plus the 5.5% interest. So for month two, I didn't pay her back yet. So she takes the $84.40 that I owe her, and she takes another 5.5% on that. So that's 0.055 of 84.40. So 84.40. Oh, that's not right. Decimal 40. 84.40. 5.5% is 0.55. So 5.5% of 84.40 equals $4.64 in month two. So add that on to the 84.40. And now after month two, I owe Maddie $89.04. But we're not done. Because now I owe her one last month of interest, 5.5% of $89. How much is my interest here? So I go decimal 0.55, 5.5% of 89.04 equals. So the third month I owe her an additional $5.90 interest. So take my $89.04, add on the interest from that month of $4.90. I get $93.94 is what I have to pay Maddie. So the answer to the question is, how much do I owe Maddie? At an $80 loan that I took from her, I now have to pay her back $93.94, or she's going to break my kneecaps, if you know what I mean. All right, question 6, what is the cost of a train ticket that costs $475.50 if I have to pay 5% GST and then 8% PST? So let's try it a different way. So $475.50, I have to figure out how much GST that is. So 5% of this will be GST. So I can do it in one step or I can do it in two steps. We talked about that. Let's do this part in two steps. What is 5% of 475.50? And 5% of that, decimal 0.5, 5% of 475.5 is $23.78. I'm going to round up. So this is the GST that I'm going to pay for that train ticket. Right? I have to pay that much money. So then I take my train ticket, add on the GST, and I'm just going to add that on there, hang on, plus 475.50. Train ticket is now going to be $499.28. Okay? And then what we have to do is we have to take the PST, which is 8%, and go, what is 8% or 8/100ths of $499.28? Take my calculator here. 8% of $499.28 equals $39.94. That's going to be my PST. That goes to the provincial government. So take my $39.94 PST, add it on to the price of the train ticket with the GST. And that train ticket's going to cost me a total of $539.22. Okay, $539.22. Now, I could have saved a lot of time and just did it in one step. So if I think about this number, 1.05, multiplied by the cost of the ticket, $475.50, why would I do that? What does this mean? Well, if I think about 100% of the ticket is the ticket price, right? 100% would be the ticket price. This one right here, that's 100% of the ticket price. Plus an additional 5%, which is your GST. Then 105% would represent both the ticket price and the GST combined. So if I take my calculator and multiply 1.05 by 105% of, already plus that, 475.50, what I end up getting is this price right here without having to do any addition. Because this, by using 105%, it's doing the addition for me. So that's how you can do it in 2 steps instead of 1 step, and you can just do that with any percentage. If you want to add a tax on it, just make sure you include the 1 in front of it, and you're going to get the price of the item plus the tax, as long as you use 1 decimal, whatever the tax is. Okay. Alrighty then. A used car priced at $8,000 is reduced by 15%. After 2 weeks, it is further reduced 10% more off the sale price. What is the new price? Let's do this mentally. So $8,000. If it's a 15% reduction, okay, what is a 10% reduction? Well, a 10% reduction would have been $800. A 5% reduction is half of 10%, so that would be $400. Therefore, a 15% reduction would be $1,200 off the asking price. So if I take my $8,000 and I subtract $1,200, I'm going to get $6,800 as my first discount. So after 2 weeks, they have to reduce it 10% more. So we have to do 10% of this amount. Now 10% is easy because 10% of $6,800, we just have to move the decimal 1 place over, and we get $680. So subtract that discount from there, 680. You get 0, borrow, 2, 1. The final price of that car is going to be $6,120. Okay, and your last question. It says at SIS, Miss McDonald, at SIS there are 512 students. Of these, 112 believe Mr. Mack should quit teaching and become a model for Abercrombie and Fitch. This is actual percentages. So 112 out of 512 students believe that I should quit my job and become a model. That's quite a low number. I thought there'd be more than that. But what we want to do is we want to figure out what is that as a percentage. So I'm going to use my proportional reasoning for this one. The equation I can create from this is 512x is equal to whatever this multiplies. So it's 112 plus 2 zeros. That multiplies that way. Divide both sides by 512. Take my calculator. 1,001, I'm sorry, this one here, divided by 512 equals, x equals 21.875, which is approximately 22% of the school believes I should be an Abercrombie model. Seems a little low in my opinion, but who knows. Okay, hopefully you understood all of that. If you have any questions, bring them tomorrow. We'll go through them. Your test will probably be on Thursday. If not, sometime next week. We'll just take it. We got lots of time left in the year. We don't want to rush it too quickly. But if you're having difficulty, make sure you see me. And extra help will be tomorrow at lunch if you need help. And we can go over any questions you have then.